Hi guys, welcome back. Right, so um, we're in the swing of moving, and this is another pre-recorded, same clothes as last time. Unfortunately, I'm having to film it every one of the pre-recordeds on one day before all of this is packed up. So this episode is on how to clean your sewing machine. Now I'm going to be cleaning my HD9 because it hasn't had a clean for a couple of months now. Becky, naughty Becky. You meant to clean it out quite often. I mean, very often. So I'm not going to name this person, but she used to be a member of Fred's gang. She had the HD9. Had is the question that you need. She's had it since the pandemic, and she was thrown away, and it started smelling funny. And then she turned her back after she would finished sewing, and there was little smoke coming out of this sewing machine. And she literally had to quickly unplug it, run outside. Lucky enough, she stays downstairs. She ran outside, put it outside. She took it to a service engineer, and the service engineer apparently, when he opened it up, saw all the fluff. Now, it doesn't happen very often, but if you've got an older style model or kind of a manual model, bit like the HD9, um, you do need to clean it out very often and oil it. Um, Not with the new top loaders. So when I say top loader is your cartridge goes on the top of your cartridge. I mean your bobbin goes in the top of the flatbed rather than in the side or at the front. Um, those tend to lubricate themselves, so you don't really have to do much oiling. I say much. Some manufacturers are different, so you're going to have to read your uh, instructions. But I know my Elna, which I've called this part one, so I'm going to defluff this machine, and then part two I'll do in January, where I defluff my Elna sewing machine, and I'll show you how different that is and how much more quicker it is to defluff that sewing machine. But if you've got an older style sewing machine or an industrial sewing machine or a HD9, you have to do quite a bit of maintenance on it. But this woman, when she got it to the service engineer had a go at her because obviously it meant more work for him, which is what she was paying him for. But it's beyond the point. To look after a sewing machine, you need to clean it. Whether it needs oiling, you need to oil it, and you need to do that on a regular basis. She was very lucky that she managed to save the HD9 before it caught on fire. The bloke said to her, if you had turned your back for a lot longer on that machine, it would have caught fire. That's really like thinking that's a modern sewing machine. And it's like, yeah. So please defluff your actual sewing machines. When I say defluff, I mean like everything. Just clean it out. So I'm going to show you the tools that I use. I don't tend to touch anywhere near the tension. And I know a lot of designers say, oh, you need to do around the tension. I tend to use thread that doesn't um, lose fibres. Now, if you see your thread is losing fibres anywhere close to the top of the sewing machine, where the tension discs are and that, you will need to look in your manual and learn how to defluff that area. I'm not going to do that because I never use thread that will defluff. I literally will only use Gutermann Sew thread. I use Aurifil, and I use uh, another brand which I buy from um, what's it called? JB Sewing in Wales. It's a polyester thread, but they use it on long arms, but it's a great for top stitching and that, and they never defluff. Those three brands don't defluff, so I tend to stick with those three brands. Now there is part nylon thread, which likes of Laura sells, Tex 3.5 or 4.5. they don't defluff either because they've got like a plastic film around them. I want to say plastic film. That's not the technology, but I'm just saying that a nylon texture or bonded nylon around it, they don't defluff. But there is some manufacturers out there that do defluff. So like some moon thread, if anybody uses moon thread, you will need to defluff the area. If you use a cheap thread on your sewing machine, you will need to defluff the tension area and stuff like that. So there is a few tools that I do use. Some are a bit odd. So first of all, I don't like when you get a sewing machine, the little brush that they give you. I just don't like the fact that it doesn't pick up the fluff very well. So I use painting, um, artist painting brushes. So I've got three brands here that I use and three styles that I use. One I have cut up into to make it cater, so it looks like a ball. But right, so I've got a rounded number six brush. So as you can see, a rounded number six, so that's just perfect and neat. I also got a rounded number six brush, but this time, as you can see, it's gone like that. So it was like that, but ended up like that. So what I ended up doing is with one of the brushes, I cut it straight across at the top here, so this rounded bit is missing. And then I get my hand and proper work it at it so it bends to a sweeping brush, as my mum used to call it, a sweeping brush. It has got fluff in there. You'll never get that fluff properly out. You can scratch it, but it will never come out. But when you defluff your sewing machine, um, it does actually stick inside, which is what you want. And then I've got a rounded number four brush. So I've got just a normal painter's brush for getting into the nuts, the cracks. And these are not specialist hairs, but you want synthetic hairs, but not too synthetic. You need that flexibility. Obviously, you won't get that flexibility once you start roughing it up and stuff. Obviously, you'll need your screwdriver, which comes with your sewing machine. If your sewing machine is needing oil, you'll need the Pacific oil. So the HD9 uses a clear industrial oil. You can't use the old-fashioned yellow oil because it's too thick. So you need to get the correct lubrication for your sewing machine, which will be mentioned in your manual. The other odd thing that I use is white board wipes. I use these because they've got no alcohol on. So whiteboard is what you tend to use in offices and in schools. I've got a box here. This is for cleaning inside my well where my bobbin goes, and you'll see how dirty it can get. And I also wipe down my sewing machine with this as well. Sometimes you need an extra bit because with fluff and dust, it does stick to sewing machines, and sometimes it really gets stuck onto either the plastic or the metal, depending on what material they've used to make your sewing machine. So sometimes this doesn't get it off. So I use just a mild disinfectant spray that I make up myself because of being that I can't have alcohol. I buy a brand which has no alcohol in it, and I just spray some kitchen cloth, kitchen paper towel with that. So they're the tools that I do use. You can use other tools as well. If you want to, you can use the brush that comes with the sewing machine, but I just tend to find that it doesn't pick up the fluff as well, and they tend to be about this small. Sometimes you need to get into a section where you need to at least have a brush that long to get into a section. So some people use pipe cleaners, some people use old toothbrushes. I don't like that one. It's not because it's an old toothbrush. There's a sign that I don't like, and that's people brushing their teeth in front of me, and I can feel it now. My teeth are tingling, so I don't use that one. I do brush my teeth. I do brush my teeth, but I have to hum, and so I can't hear the noise of brushing my teeth. Oh my God, I'm feeling it now in my teeth. But yeah, so I'm gonna go to the camera by the sewing machine. Let me just turn off that one and the overhead. So I'm gonna go to here. We've got an odd angle, and I'll be moving the sewing machine around. So this is my Jonomi HD9. I've got my manual out here, just in case. Right, okay, so the first thing I need to do is take the needle out. I've got this back to front at the moment, so let me just take the needle out. I always take the needle out. I'm going to discard that off camera. I have a little pot that I put used needles in and stuff. I'm just going to tighten that up so I don't lose it. And then the next thing I'm going to take off is my presser foot here. My machine is totally unplugged. I'm turning it on here and there's no light because it's completely unplugged. So it can't work and damage my fingers. Okay, so sometimes your feet get a bit dirty. So just get your whiteboard wipes. Make sure they're, I'm going to use a word that I don't like using, moist. And just give that a really good clean all over. We will be cleaning this area up here anyway. So I'm going to put that to one side. Next thing I'm going to do is open up my area, and as you can see, it's a bit dirty in there. I'm going to get my bobbin out first. Doing this completely back to front. There you go. Okay, so sometimes you will have some dust in your bobbin case. I've got a little bit, so I tend to use the number 6 non-adapted brush just to get any pieces of fluff out. Okay, that's nice and clean now, so I'm going to put that to one side. I tend to have a pot or a rubber mat. I've got a rubber mat that it sits on, so I'm just basically putting it on this red mat here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is take this plate off here. Now, if you've got a top loader, you will need the second one of these, which I will do in January, the second video. So let me just take this off. But no matter what sewing machine you have, and if it's got a plate, which majority of them have got, you do need to undo them and give them a good clean. So I'm going to take that bit off. Mine's quite grubby underneath, so I'm going to get one of those whiteboard wipes. Give that a really good, as you can see, it's really mucky underneath. Give it a good wipe all over. Because even though we use in bag making, we use quarters tape quite a lot. It still does leave a residue, so you might have some like sticky residue around the place. I've got some here, so I'll clean that in a minute. So I'm going to get my number 6 and go right into Nuts and Cracks. I don't literally swipe everywhere. I just dip it in, pull it out, and get that off the fluff. So I've got some there. Get a pile of it. There's a pile there. So, and then obviously you got the feed dog area. That's the jagged area. You must clean underneath it and on top. So this is where my contraption of a brush comes in handy, because this will get any bits flicking up here. Anything that's stuck on those feed dogs. Okay. Get that brush right up in there, because I can see as I'm pulling out there's some dust there and fluff. And you just have to keep doing that. You'll be doing this for a couple of 10-20 minutes. But I keep mine quite clean. But you'd be surprised how many people go without cleaning it. So as you can see, I can get my brush down there. I just swiped along it. I know I told you not to swipe, but there is some sections where you can swipe. Okay, so I've done that. I'm gonna go right up in here. There's a big piece there. I want to look at that piece there. Don't know where that's come from, but it has come from somewhere. And go right into, if you've got a bobbin area, go in there as well. Just going to swap over to this one. I managed to get some bits out. Go back to this one. Right, okay, so I'm going to get my small brush now, because I kind of defluffed quite a lot. But I'm just going to get it into these little cracks that the bigger brushes can't get into the mechanism areas. Just clean out those little bits from there. I can see it. If you've got a pair of tweezers, that helps. I don't like using tweezers though. That's because I've had a bad experience with them. That's just me personally, but my bad experience was I cranked the arm. As you can see, I'm cranking it here. I cranked the arm and I got a pair of tweezers stuck, and it damaged my sewing machine. And that was when I was younger anyway, so some there I can see. I can see that fluff. Let's try that one. Nope, let's try the hard one. There it is. Okay, so in the Janome HD9, we've got this area here. I get one of those board wipes. Just give it a good clean. So sometimes the oil can leak in this area, so this might have a bit of orange marking on it, which it has. That's from the oil. I do the oiling at the last. I'll give it a good clean here as well. around where it closes up the compartment. Okay. Any last bit of dust, just come at a different angle to make sure I'm happy with that. So I'm happy with that, so I'll load my bobbin back up. Pop that in. Oh, don't notice that back to front is weird. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to pop the plate back on. Okay, and put the screws in so I don't lose them. Always make sure the plate's on tight, but not too tight because you don't want it to wreck the thread of the screw. Okay, so that bit's done. I'm going to pop this back on. See if it needs a clean anywhere else, which it doesn't. Dip that screw a bit more. And I'll put the needle in last, only because I need to put some oil in and stuff. So out of that, I'm just squashing this up into a ball. I got that much fluff out of it, and obviously there's a bit of fluff on my rag there. I'll have to back open this in a short while to put some oil in, because we have to put some oil inside this bit. Right, so I'm just going to adjust the camera so you can see the next part. And lift this up so I can give this a good clean. So first of all, I get some new board wipes, one or two. And I just give this a good clean down to get any sticky residue off my favourite tape, because it does put some residue. Now there's some residue on now, which is not being lifted by the board wipes. I'm going to remove this tape. Now this tape is for when I'm filming. The light underneath the sewing machine. Oh, that's a bit wrong. Sorry, guys. The light underneath the sewing machine flickers, so I have to use some tape, duct tape, to stop the flickering. And I keep it on my sewing machine. I'll just give that a clean. Right, okay. So because I'm finding that some of the residue from quilter's tape isn't coming off, getting the spray and a couple of sheets of paper towel, and just away from my sewing machine I spray the paper towel. So I use a disinfectant that's got a a cleaning fluid in it as well. I don't know the brand. Just took the bottle away, but it's got a nice smell to it. Okay, clean around the top area as well. So sorry, I'm moving the camera once again. I'll get the camera to work. Okay, so I clean the top area because I do get quite a lot of dust, especially in this apartment, but it might be different in the new apartment. Because we have the windows open and we're by the main road. So clean around the top area. Underneath the handle because you always get some in there. Okay, so you see this section here. If I just bring this here, so you see this section here. I'm personally not going to touch it, but there is some dust. So I just get the number 6 brush. So I've got the number 6 brush and just round it. Now I use the number 6 rounded brush because the simple reason is it doesn't give off it doesn't basically move stuff or damage stuff or anything. If I was using that one, it would damage. If I was using that one, it would damage. This one, it won't, but this one, it won't either. But that big one, it will damage. So I'm just giving that a bit of a dust around that area. Okay, then if I bring this down, sorry, motion sickness again. I clean this area. So sometimes you'll get fluff just up in this area. I tend to keep mine very clean, especially even when I haven't cleaned it. So, but you can get some fluff. Rotate your handle, your piston, just to see if anything comes off. If you've got a needle threader, which I have here, pull it down, but be careful because remember you've got a little hook on it. So just use your number 6 brush. Give that a clean. Okay, so that's that part. And then one place I haven't done is where the spools of thread go. Sometimes you get fibres or dust in that area. So I'm just going to give that a good clean as well. Okay, so that's all the cleaning I do, and I do that quite regularly. However, I haven't done it for about 2 months. But generally, after I've done a big project, i.e. a quilt, perfect example of a quilt, I do tend to find that it will need a very, very good clean. So the next thing I'll do is find a needle, make sure my piston is up. So that's my presser, and I'll put that in. So I will do that off camera, because obviously I'm not very confident, and I personally have to rock the sewing machine because of my back, to get it back in. Right. So the last thing to do on this sewing machine is oil. Now, like I say, totally up to your manufacturer's manual. So also I've got my manufacturer's manual here, and it tells you where you need to put your oil. And you do meant to keep it lubricated quite often. I do lubricate the sewing machine, even if I'm not defluffing it every week. And this type of machine, industrial sewing machines, you are meant to lubricate them at least after every project. I just do it once a week, and it's not much. I've had this bottle 2 years. I've filled it up once, with industrial. So on mine, let me just go a bit higher. Yeah, I've got an oil um, spot here. I've got an oil spot here. Oh, I've got an oil spot inside this chamber, which I will show you. So all you do is pop the nozzle in and just give that a quick squeeze, and some oil's gone down into where the first roller is. So I don't know what they call it, but it's a roller. Then I'll go over to the next one, hold that down. I give this a little bit more, and you will find some oil might come down on your needle. So for a day or two, I pop a piece of scrap fabric underneath. Once I've finished oiling it everywhere, and pop that and let oil drip onto that if I've overloaded too much oil up there. So the last bit, sorry about this guys, I need to make sure I've got the camera right. Okay, the last oil bit I have to do is here. Such a heavy image. So I've got a little well here that we have to put it in. It's like a cushion that you're putting it in, and what that is doing is lubricating all this section here. So, and you fill that up, and sometimes you can overfill it, and that's when sometimes you get a bit of grease mark on there. And that's gone in. And obviously, the last thing I would do is pop a needle in, and I'll pop this underneath it to stop any oil dripping anywhere. And I'll do that for overnight and leave that overnight because I've oiled it, and just let all the oil from the top run down, and it will run down this part here. Right, okay, so that's how I clean my sewing machine. It's such easy. Keeping on top of it is the main thing. You won't need all those tools if you don't want to go out and buy all those tools. These two paintbrushes were cheap ones from the Works. They were in a pack of 5 for about £3, £2 to £3. So you will have some paintbrushes left over, which might come in handy for other machines or something. Overlockers, that's a perfect thing that you need to clean out quite regularly, because overlocking thread does fray a lot. So that's how I clean out my sewing machine. It's quick and easy. I'm sorry about the camera. Obviously, I normally have a fixed camera, so I was moving the fixed camera around. I'll try and edit some of that out so you're not motion sickness. But yeah, that's how I do my sewing machine and cleaning out my sewing machine. So the next pre-recorded will be me just talking to the camera, because that machine's got to be packed away in the next couple of hours. I haven't got the box, so I'm just going to basically transport it as it is, and you're not meant to. So I'm going to take it on my lap in the car down the road. But yeah, so I'm going to talk to the camera on what needles I use and what recommended needles I use for different fabrics. And when you've got certain bags and stuff like that, and when you're quilting and stuff, I'm not going to go into great details on them. I'm just going to use what I know and what I teach, because I don't want to teach you other stuff and get you mind boggled on that. So thanks ever so much for joining us today, and I'll see you in the next pre-recorded, which is probably the same clothes. I'll see you all soon. Bye.